There are people who walk through life wearing masks so perfect, you would never know they're hiding something. They speak with conviction. They smile with warmth. They offer help with open hands. And yet, somewhere deep inside you, a quiet voice whispers, "Something is not right here." You've felt it before, haven't you? That strange dissonance between what someone says and what you feel, between the image they present and the energy they carry, between the words that sound so right and the sensation in your body that screams to run. We're taught to ignore these signals. We're told to be logical, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to not judge based on feelings. But what if those feelings are the most honest things speaking to you? Thomas Merton, the contemplative monk who spent his life studying the human soul, understood something most of us refuse to see. He knew that the greatest dangers in life don't come with warnings. They come dressed in kindness. They arrive speaking the language of love. They offer you everything you've been searching for, and only later do you realize the price you've paid. In the monastery, stripped of all worldly distractions, Merton watched. He listened. He observed the subtle patterns of human behavior that most of us miss in the noise of daily life. And what he discovered was both troubling and liberating, that harm rarely announces itself, that destruction often wears the mask of salvation, and that learning to see clearly is not paranoia, it's survival. This is not about cynicism. This is not about closing your heart to the world. This is about discernment. This is about learning to see what others cannot see, to feel what others refuse to feel, to protect your peace without building walls around your spirit. There's a difference, you see, between wisdom and wariness, between healthy boundaries and defensive barriers, between protecting yourself and isolating yourself. Merton understood this distinction deeply. He knew that the spiritual path requires vulnerability, that growth demands openness, that love necessitates risk. But he also knew that throwing yourself open to everyone, trusting without question, giving without limit, this isn't love. This is self-destruction masquerading as virtue. Because the truth is this: not everyone who smiles at you wishes you well. Not everyone who speaks of love understands its meaning. And not everyone who offers guidance knows the way. Some people are lost in their own darkness and will pull you into it without hesitation. Some people are so wounded they cannot help but wound others. Some people are so empty they will drain everyone around them trying to fill the void they refuse to face. And recognizing this, naming this, protecting yourself from this is not cruelty, this is clarity. Merton spent years in silence, observing human nature stripped of its social masks. In that silence, he discovered patterns. He saw the same destructive personalities appear again and again, leaving trails of confusion, pain, and broken trust in their wake. And he understood that recognizing these patterns is not about judgment. It's about wisdom. It's about preserving your energy for those who truly deserve it. Think about it. How much of your life have you spent trying to understand people who never truly wanted to be understood? How much energy have you poured into relationships that were designed to drain you? How many times have you ignored your intuition because you didn't want to seem judgmental, only to discover later that your first impression was exactly right? Merton would tell you that this is the cost of not paying attention. This is what happens when we confuse politeness with wisdom, when we mistake tolerance for love, when we allow our desire to be good to override our need to be safe. So let us walk together through this landscape of human shadows. Let us examine the 7 personality types that Merton warned us about, not to condemn them but to recognize them, not to hate them, but to protect ourselves from the harm they carry, often without even knowing it. And as we walk, remember this: seeing clearly is an act of love, for yourself and ultimately for them too, because allowing someone to harm you doesn't help them grow. It only enables their patterns, reinforces their behaviors, and prevents them from facing the consequences that might finally wake them up. The first type is the one who seems most harmless, the one who appears humble, self-deprecating, even fragile. This is the perpetual victim, the person who has never in their entire life been responsible for their own suffering. Everything that has ever gone wrong was someone else's fault. Every opportunity they missed was stolen from them. Every relationship that failed was destroyed by the other person's cruelty. At first you feel compassion. You want to help. You want to be the one who finally understands them, who finally shows them the love they claim they've never received. And this desire to help is beautiful. It's human. It's the best part of who you are. But here's what they're counting on. Your compassion will override your discernment. Your kindness will blind you to the pattern, because slowly, quietly, you begin to notice something strange. No matter how much you give, it's never enough. No matter how much you understand, they need more understanding. And if you ever even gently suggest that perhaps they played some role in their own struggles, you become the enemy. You become just another person who betrayed them, another name added to their long list of those who failed to see their pain. And the story they tell about you, after you've exhausted yourself trying to save them? It will be the same story they told about everyone who came before you. You'll be painted as the villain who abandoned them in their hour of need, the one who promised to help, but ultimately failed them, just like everyone else. The narrative never changes, only the names do. Merton recognized this pattern in the spiritual seekers who came to him for guidance. People who wanted transformation without effort, people who wanted to be saved without taking any responsibility for their own salvation. He understood that true growth requires accountability, and those who refuse to look at their own shadows will forever blame the light for being too bright. He would sit with them, these seekers, and listen to their stories of betrayal and abandonment. And with infinite patience he would gently point out the one constant in all their tales of woe, themselves. Not to shame them, but to wake them up. Because he knew that until they could see their own role in their suffering, they would remain trapped in it, endlessly cycling through the same patterns, collecting new villains for their ongoing tragedy. The danger here is not that these people are malicious. Most of them truly believe their own narrative. They've told the story so many times it's become their identity. They don't know who they would be without their suffering. The danger is that they will drain you completely and still tell you it wasn't enough. They will consume your energy, your time, your love, and when you have nothing left to give, they will move on to the next person, already rewriting the story, so that you too become another villain in their endless tragedy. And you will be left wondering what you could have done differently, replaying every conversation, questioning your own goodness. This is their final gift to you, the doubt that perhaps you really were the problem. Don't accept it. The second type is more difficult to spot because they wear the costume of wisdom. These are the charismatic deceivers, the ones who speak with such confidence that you forget to question what they're actually saying. They have an answer for everything. They know the secrets to happiness, success, enlightenment, wealth. They quote philosophers and mystics. They speak of higher consciousness and ancient truths, and somehow by the end of the conversation, you feel smaller and they feel larger. Here's the trick they use. They speak in certainties where wise people speak in questions. They offer simple solutions to complex problems. They promise shortcuts to destinations that can only be reached through patient, difficult work. And they do it all with such charisma, such presence, such seeming authority, that you don't notice the emptiness at the core of their message. Merton called them spiritual merchants, people who trade in borrowed wisdom without ever having done the inner work themselves. They collect teachings like trophies, displaying them to impress others but never actually living them. They speak of humility while demanding admiration. They preach detachment while clinging desperately to their image. They talk about love while manipulating everyone around them. What makes them so dangerous is their believability. They sound enlightened because they've memorized the language of enlightenment. They appear wise because they've studied the aesthetics of wisdom. But beneath the performance there is only emptiness, and if you get too close, if you trust them too deeply, you'll discover that their certainty is just armor, protecting a fragile ego that cannot tolerate being questioned. Watch what happens when you challenge them, even gently. Watch how quickly the mask slips. Watch how the spiritual teacher becomes defensive, how the enlightened guru becomes petty, how the wise guide becomes vindictive. Because real wisdom doesn't need to defend itself. Truth doesn't require aggression to maintain itself. Genuine understanding welcomes questions because it knows it will only deepen through examination. These are the people who build followings, not communities. Who gather disciples, not friends. Who need your belief in them more than they care about your actual well-being. And when you finally see through the act, When you realize there's no substance beneath the shine, they will turn on you with a cruelty that seems to come from nowhere. Because you've done the unforgivable thing, you've stopped feeding their illusion. The third type appears in the guise of moral superiority. These are the righteous judges, the ones who have appointed themselves guardians of truth and virtue. They see the world in absolutes, good and evil, right and wrong, saved and damned, and they always conveniently find themselves on the side of the righteous. Every conversation with them becomes a test you didn't know you were taking. Every opinion you express is measured against their standards. Every choice you make is evaluated for its moral purity. They don't offer guidance. They offer condemnation dressed as concern. They don't share wisdom, they deliver verdicts. Merton, who spent his life exploring the complexity of human spirituality, was deeply troubled by these people. He saw how they weaponized religion, how they turned love into law, how they built prisons out of what was meant to set people free. He understood that true morality is born from compassion, not from the need to feel superior. That genuine righteousness whispers, it doesn't shout. That real virtue has no need to announce itself. The danger of the righteous judge is that they will make you doubt your own goodness. They will plant seeds of shame so deep that you forget you were worthy before you ever met them. They will convince you that your value depends on their approval, and then they will make that approval impossible to earn. Because the moment you meet their standards, they will simply raise them higher. The game is designed so that you can never win, so that they can maintain their position above you, forever looking down with that mixture of pity and disappointment that keeps you striving for something you'll never reach. The fourth type moves through life like a ghost, never quite present, never quite real. These are the emotionally absent, the ones who have mastered the art of seeming without being. They respond to your words, but they don't hear them. They look at you, but they don't see you. They exist beside you, but never with you. At first, you might mistake their distance for depth. You think they're contemplative, mysterious, perhaps carrying some profound sadness that makes them withdrawn. So you try harder. You share more. You open yourself wider, hoping to reach whatever it is inside them that feels so far away. But no matter how much of yourself you offer, you never get anything real in return. Merton knew these people well. He encountered them in the monastery, men who had entered seeking God but were actually just hiding from life. People who confused detachment with disconnection, who thought that being spiritual meant being unavailable. He understood the difference between solitude and isolation, between sacred silence and emotional abandonment. The emotionally absent will never give you what you're searching for because they don't have it to give. Not because they're withholding it, but because they've locked themselves so far inside their own fortress that they've forgotten how to come out. And the tragedy is that you will exhaust yourself trying to reach them, wondering what you're doing wrong, why you're not enough to make them feel something. When the truth is simpler and more painful, they've chosen numbness over connection, and no amount of your love will change that choice. The fifth type is perhaps the most insidious, because they operate under the banner of friendship. These are the competitive companions, the ones who cannot celebrate your joy without diminishing it, cannot witness your success without finding a way to position themselves above it. They keep score in a game you didn't know you were playing. You share good news, and they share better news. You achieve something meaningful, and they remind you of what you haven't achieved yet. You express pride in yourself, and they offer subtle corrections, small suggestions that somehow make you feel like what you accomplished wasn't quite enough. They don't do this, obviously. They do it with concern, with care, with the appearance of wanting to help you improve. Merton observed this pattern in spiritual communities, where people turned the path to God into a competition, where humility became something to boast about, where silence was performed for an audience. He saw how this competitive spirit poisoned everything sacred, turning prayer into performance and devotion into one-upmanship. The competitive companion will never let you shine without casting a shadow. They need you to succeed, just enough to validate their own superiority, but never so much that you threaten their position. They will support you up to a certain point, and then, when you're about to break through to something truly yours, they will find ways to pull you back. Sometimes with criticism, sometimes with doubt disguised as realism, sometimes just by making everything about them again. The sixth type speaks the language of chaos. These are the chronic creators of drama, the ones for whom peace is unbearable, for whom quiet is threatening. They cannot exist in stillness, so they constantly stir the waters, creating emergencies, manufacturing conflicts, turning every small issue into a crisis that demands your immediate attention and emotional investment. You'll notice that when things are calm in their life, they become restless. They'll pick fights over nothing. They'll resurrect old grievances. They'll create problems where none existed. Not because they're necessarily malicious, but because chaos is the only state in which they feel alive. Stability terrifies them because it forces them to face themselves, and that is a meeting they've been avoiding their entire life. Merton understood this from his studies of human consciousness. He knew that some people become addicted to suffering, that they build their entire identity around struggle, and that peace becomes a kind of death for them. They don't know who they are when they're not fighting something, so they ensure there's always a battle to fight. The chronic drama creator will never let you rest. Every conversation will have an edge. Every interaction will carry potential for explosion. You'll find yourself walking on eggshells, carefully managing your words, trying to avoid triggering whatever invisible wire might set off the next crisis. And the exhausting truth is that no matter how careful you are, they will find something. Because they need the drama. It's how they feel important, how they get attention, how they avoid the terrifying prospect of genuine intimacy that requires vulnerability instead of volatility. The seventh type is the most dangerous of all because they seem so generous, so giving, so endlessly sacrificial. These are the manipulators who disguise their control as care. They give to you constantly, but every gift comes with invisible strings. They help you, but every favor is a deposit in a bank account you didn't know existed. And someday they will come to collect with interest you cannot afford to pay. They remember everything they've done for you. They keep a ledger of kindnesses in their mind, and they will recite it when you fail to meet their expectations, when you set a boundary they don't like, when you choose yourself over their needs. Their generosity was never about love. It was about leverage. It was about creating a debt so large that you could never escape it. Merton saw this in people who used service as a form of domination, who gave not from abundance but from emptiness, hoping that their gifts would buy the love and devotion they couldn't earn through genuine connection. He understood that true generosity asks nothing in return, that real love sets free rather than binds. The manipulative giver will make you feel guilty for every moment you don't center them in your life. They gave so much, they sacrificed so much. How could you be so ungrateful, so selfish, so blind to everything they've done? And slowly, without realizing it, you stop being yourself and become a character in their story, playing the role they've written for you, the grateful recipient, the loyal friend, the one who owes them everything. But here is what Merton would want you to understand, what his years of contemplation revealed about human nature and the protection of the soul. Recognizing these patterns is not about becoming hard. It's not about closing yourself off to human connection. It's not about assuming the worst in everyone you meet. It's about discernment. It's about understanding that your energy, your love, your trust are sacred resources, and you have not just the right, but the responsibility to guard them. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Not everyone has earned the privilege of your vulnerability. And that's not cruelty, that's wisdom. Listen to what your body tells you. Listen to that subtle tightening in your chest when someone speaks. Listen to the heaviness that settles over you after certain conversations. Listen to the exhaustion that has no logical source. Your body knows before your mind accepts. Your intuition speaks before your logic catches up. And learning to trust these signals, to honor these warnings, is not paranoia. It's intelligence. Merton taught that true love requires boundaries, that genuine compassion includes self-compassion, that you cannot pour from an empty cup, and staying in relationships that drain you serves no one. Not you, and not even the person who's draining you, because it enables patterns that keep them from their own growth. Think about the people in your life who consistently leave you feeling depleted. The ones whose presence feels like a weight. The ones you dread hearing from. The ones who take and take and take and somehow still make you feel like you're not giving enough. These are not people you're failing. These are people you're enabling. And the kindest thing you can do for both of you is to step back. The path of wisdom is not about building walls around your heart. It's about building doors and being very, very careful about who you hand the keys to. It's about learning to hear the quiet warnings your intuition whispers when something feels wrong, even when everything looks right. It's about trusting that discomfort in your gut that tells you someone is not what they appear to be, even when you can't rationally explain why. Because the truth that Merton discovered in his years of silence is this: the people who are safe to trust don't need to perform their trustworthiness. They don't need to convince you with grand gestures or eloquent words. They show up consistently. They take responsibility for their mistakes. They celebrate your growth. They respect your boundaries. They give without keeping score. They speak truth without needing to be right. They love without trying to own you. These people exist. They are not rare. But you will only find them if you stop wasting your precious energy on those who cannot or will not meet you with the same authenticity you offer them. They're the ones who don't make you feel like you're walking on eggshells. The ones whose presence brings peace, not anxiety. The ones who remember what you told them 3 months ago because they were actually listening. The ones who apologize without making excuses. The ones who can sit in silence with you and it feels like communion, not awkwardness. They're the friends who celebrate your success without needing to share a bigger success of their own. The partners who let you be fully yourself without trying to reshape you into their ideal. The mentors who guide without controlling. The companions who support without suffocating. And when you find these people, you'll know. Not because they're perfect, they're not, but because they're real. Because their flaws are honest, their struggles are genuine, their love is unconditional, not because they give you everything you want, but because they see you completely and choose to stay anyway. And perhaps the deepest wisdom Merton offers is this: sometimes the people we need to be most careful about are earlier versions of ourselves, the perpetual victim you once were, the righteous judge you sometimes become when you're afraid, the emotionally absent version of yourself that emerges when connection feels too dangerous, the competitive part that arises when you feel threatened, the drama-creating tendency that appears when you're bored with peace, the manipulative giver who uses kindness as currency when you fear you're not enough without it. We carry within us the capacity for all these patterns, and recognizing them in others helps us recognize them in ourselves. This is not about superiority. This is about consciousness. This is about choosing every single day to move toward the light, even when the shadows feel familiar and safe. The monastery where Merton lived still stands, the silence he cultivated still echoes. And the wisdom he discovered in that silence is this: in a world full of noise, of performance, of masks and pretense, the most radical thing you can do is be genuine, to see clearly, to love wisely, to trust carefully, to give freely, but not foolishly. He walked those stone corridors for decades, watching seasons change through ancient windows, listening to the same prayers echo off the same walls year after year. And in that repetition, in that stillness, he learned what most of us never discover in our rush through life: that truth reveals itself slowly, that wisdom comes not from accumulating knowledge, but from stripping away illusion, that the people worth keeping are the ones who don't need you to pretend. The monastery taught him something else too: that solitude is not loneliness, that being alone with yourself is different from being isolated from others, that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is create space between yourself and those who cannot honor that space. That silence is not absence but presence. That emptiness is not lack but readiness. You will meet people who challenge this wisdom, who tell you that boundaries are unspiritual, that questioning motives is cynical, that protecting yourself is selfish. And in those moments, remember this: Merton, one of the most loving, compassionate, open-hearted souls of his generation, still chose carefully who he allowed into his inner circle, still recognized when someone was not capable of the kind of relationship he needed to thrive, still understood that saying no to what depletes you is how you say yes to what fulfills you. He knew something that modern spirituality often forgets: that saying yes to everyone is saying no to yourself, that giving to those who drain you is stealing from those who deserve you, that martyring yourself serves no one, not God, not the world, not even the person you're sacrificing yourself for. The world needs your light, but it doesn't need you to burn yourself out trying to illuminate people who prefer the darkness. It doesn't need you to empty yourself trying to fill those who have holes they refuse to acknowledge. It doesn't need you to lose yourself trying to find those who don't want to be found. What the world needs is for you to stay whole, to remain clear, to keep your heart open but your eyes wide, to love deeply but wisely, to trust but verify, to give but not at the cost of your own depletion. Because in the end, the greatest gift you can offer the world is not a martyred, exhausted, hollow version of yourself who gave everything to everyone and has nothing left. The greatest gift you can offer is a whole, conscious, discerning soul who has learned to preserve their light, who shares it generously with those who truly appreciate it, who understands that loving everyone equally does not mean trusting everyone equally. This is the wisdom Merton offers us from his years of silence, from his deep contemplation of human nature, from his honest examination of the patterns that heal and the patterns that harm. Not that we should be suspicious of everyone, but that we should be conscious with everyone. Not that we should withhold our love, but that we should direct it toward those who know how to receive it without destroying it. And when you meet someone who makes you doubt this wisdom, who makes you feel guilty for having boundaries, who tells you that real love means unlimited access and unconditional acceptance of any behavior, remember this moment. Remember these words. Remember that even the saints, even the mystics, even those who dedicated their lives to love and service, still recognized that discernment is not the opposite of compassion. It is the foundation of sustainable compassion. Your peace matters. Your energy matters. Your well-being matters. And anyone who tries to convince you otherwise is exactly the kind of person Merton would tell you to walk away from. Walk toward the light. Walk toward those who meet you there. Walk toward relationships that expand you rather than diminish you. Walk toward people who challenge you to grow, not people who need you to stay small so they can feel big. And in that walking, you will find what Merton found in his silence, that true connection is not loud, that real love is not demanding, that genuine wisdom whispers, that authentic relationships don't require you to lose yourself to find someone else. You will find your people, the ones who see you, the ones who honor your boundaries as sacred, the ones who celebrate your light without trying to dim it, the ones who grow alongside you instead of competing with you, the ones who show up in silence as powerfully as they do in conversation. They exist, and you will recognize them not by their words, but by how you feel when you're with them. Not by what they promise, but by what they consistently deliver. Not by the image they project, but by the reality they embody. This is the path, this is the wisdom, this is the way forward, not with cynicism, but with consciousness, not with walls, but with discernment, not with a closed heart, but with a wise one. And somewhere in that monastery where silence still speaks louder than words, Merton's spirit smiles. Because this is what he learned, this is what he taught, this is what he would want you to remember, that the examined life requires examining not just yourself, but also those you allow into your life. That spiritual growth includes learning who to grow with and who to grow beyond. That loving everyone does not mean trusting everyone. Choose wisely, love deeply, trust carefully, and never apologize for protecting the precious, irreplaceable light that you carry within you. Because that light is not just yours. It belongs to everyone you will meet, everyone you will help, everyone whose life you will touch in the years ahead. And you cannot share what you have not preserved. You cannot give what has been taken. You cannot illuminate the path for others if you've allowed your own flame to be extinguished by those who fear the light. Stay awake, stay conscious, stay wise. And trust that in doing so, you are not becoming cold, you are becoming clear. And clarity, Merton knew, is the beginning of all true love.